Okay, well, it looks like we've got a good number of people here, so I'm sure people will trickle in, but why don't we get started? Um, Hi, everyone, and welcome to the information session for the Bandung 2022 residency. I'm Lisa Gold, A4's Executive Director, and quick accessibility check. I am a Hapa, half Korean, half white woman with a mix of gray and dark brown hair pulled up, wearing a black shirt, zooming in from the unceded lands of the Lenape peoples. Amy?
Hi, everyone. I'm honored to be in community with you all. My name is Amy Undrier. I'm the Executive Director and Chief Curator at the Museum of Contemporary African Diasporan Arts, also known as MOCADA. For my accessibility check, well, I should even before that, my pronouns are she and her. And for my accessibility check, I am a Haitian American Black woman wearing a black hoodie with camouflage letters across the front. And I'm sitting in front of paintings from some of our artists at MOCADA.
Great. Thank you all for joining us today to learn more about this new collaborative program, which we hope will help foster solidarity and understanding between the Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Black communities through creative, community-based actions. Amy, do you want to share anything, or should we just dive into it?
I think we should just dive into it. I'm so excited just to be here to talk about these things because it's so important. I think the main point of this, as you just mentioned, Lisa, is that this program is about fostering solidarity. Obviously, that means within our beloved communities, but also it's about transformation of the residents who are involved. I think we're all in this period of exploration and looking for ways to build coalition, community, etc. So that's the way we envision this residency. How do we build within and outside of ourselves and the community? I don't know if I said that clearly, but I hope you got me today. I'm a little mosh mouth today.
I got you. All right, so before we start, I'm just going to share some protocols and an acknowledgement. So please mute yourself if you're not speaking. You can note that there is a raise hand function, which is accessible by clicking on the participants icon if you'd like to ask a question directly, but we would really prefer to wait until the end of the presentation to answer all the questions. But if you have to ask your question in the moment because you may forget or something, please use the chat box and we will try to get to all of the questions. We have closed captions available via Rev. So if you would like to enable captions, you should see a CC icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen menu that has the words live transcript below it. So just click on that icon to enable the captions. And we are fortunate to have ASL interpretation today by Sarika Mehta and Jean Balatayo of Pro Bono ASL. So this program is made possible with some wonderful supporters, the New York City Council's AAPI Community Initiative, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the Ford Foundation. So, in pre-pandemic times, we would be probably meeting in one of our offices, which are on the unceded lands of the Munsee, Lenape, and Canarsie peoples. But since we're meeting virtually, I would like to share a digital land acknowledgement written by Canadian theater artist Adrienne Wong, as we're all occupying different physical spaces. Since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let's also take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We're using high-speed equipment. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art that we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect Indigenous peoples worldwide. So I invite you to join me in acknowledging all of this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. So now we will begin our presentation. Okay, so I'm going to go through the context, the residency, parameters, eligibility, and then Amy is going to talk about the actual application and selection criteria. And then we will both join together at the end to attempt to answer your questions. Okay, so just a little background about the two organizations. The Asian American Arts Alliance, we call ourselves A4. We're a nonprofit organization dedicated to ensuring greater representation, equity, and opportunities for Asian American artists and cultural organizations through resource sharing, promotion, and programs like this, which are community building. MOCADA, the Museum of Contemporary African Diasporan Arts, uses visual and performing arts as a point of departure for exploring new artistic production across a variety of disciplines. Through exhibitions, community programming, and educational initiatives centered in social justice, MOCADA incites dialogue on pressing social and political issues facing the African diaspora and fosters a dynamic space for the creation and continuous evolution of culture. Next. So I'm sure all of you are well aware of the current political climate and recent events that have deeply impacted our communities, primarily the Black Lives Matter movements and the recent spike in anti-Asian violence and rhetoric, the Stop Asian Hate movements. So looking back historically at Asian Americans and Black communities coming together, there is a long, long history of this solidarity, excuse me, life in New York City. So as I said, there's a long history of our communities coming together, and yet that is often overshadowed in the mainstream media. So we want to bring this solidarity and these actions to light. And one such event was the first large-scale Afro-Asian conference known as the Bandung Conference, which took place in Bandung, Indonesia, in West Java in 1955. And this was a huge conference with representatives of 29 nations taking part to promote Afro-Asian cooperation and oppose colonialism. So at the end of this conference, they adopted this 10-point declaration on promotion of world peace and cooperation, and that's what we aspire to do here. Okay, next. Okay, the actual residency. So this is an initial cohort of 7 to 10 New York City based visionaries. We are prescribing this within a 3-month period, and it's going to be focused around a series of learning exchanges, which are both self-directed and group facilitated learning exchanges. We are inviting organizers, artists, educators, waymakers, culture bearers to take part and inform each other through their different practices. And again, as I mentioned, we want to advance, propel the spirit of solidarity, which was crystallized during the 60s and 70s. And again, the focus of this is on both historical and contemporary issues facing our respective communities. And we want to make sure, as Amy noted in her opening remarks, that we want to deepen the relationships, both for artists, both for residents, within themselves and their practice, but also with other participants within the cohort, and most especially within the communities that we've identified. So we want to encourage connections with local leaders and community members to inspire this unity and solidarity through the lens of artistic production. And that one thing that we want to clarify is that we are not asking for you to create a new project or to even complete a project within this 3-month time period, because we understand that solidarity doesn't happen overnight, that this is long-term work, but we want you to come with an idea, or if you have already been doing this work, we want to hear about it and how this residency can help advance that work. Okay, next. So the residency comprises a number of components. first and foremost is to create a safe space for our communities, for the residents to engage in discourse, social justice discourse, restorative healing, and then again, building allyship across our communities. The facilitated learning exchanges are going to be led by YK Hong, who is a well-established anti-oppression coach and just a very smart and thoughtful human being. And then we will have a series of separate conversations of workshops with leading community voices. And we are still working to secure those. So we will share those very shortly. Each artist who is selected to participate will receive a $1,500 honorarium. If you are a collective, that $1,500 will have to be shared among your collective. And if you come to us with a specific project in mind that you would like to execute either during or after this residency, we have a total of up to $1,000 to support that project. And we hope to build connections with community leaders and members of our affected communities. Next, timeline. So we will plan to notify you if you are selected to participate on the 10th, and the first session will begin on the 17th. I'm not going to read all of these dates because they are in the application, but the whole point is that it will start in May, end in August, and we hope that you will learn along the way and teach each other along the way, and then share your learnings and your projects at the end. Okay, next. Okay, so the eligibility for this. You must be a resident of New York City, any of the 5 boroughs. All disciplines and stages of artistic exploration, activism, community organizing, educational practice, and thought leadership is welcome. This is for emerging, mid-career, and established professionals who are engaged and interested in this work. It is imperative that you demonstrate a willingness or an interest in community work and about bridging our communities and fostering solidarities. That is key. We would like you to have a proposed project in mind. As I said, this could be either something you've been working on for a long time or something you would like to execute but didn't have the resources, whether that is community connections or assets or whatever to execute. So we want to know how you're thinking about this through an artistic lens. So we're also asking you to come with a spirit of generosity and to foster and be dedicated to fostering a collaborative, close-knit community. A4 had recently launched a virtual residency program during the beginning of the pandemic, and the cohorts built a very intense bond, supporting each other, co-creating projects with each other. So something like that, while it's not required and may not happen, but it's a beautiful side product, and it's something that we would like to see continue. Another factor is, as an interest, somebody who is eligible, we want people to demonstrate an interest in using this residency as a platform to promote these messages of healing and unity. Next. Again, this is open to individuals or collectives, but not organizations. So if you are part of an official organization, please rethink that and apply as a collective. And then if you are presently engaged in a full-time degree program, you are not eligible, unfortunately, to apply at this time. And then finally, you must be at least 18 years of age at the time of the residency when it starts. So that's fine. Okay.
The application process. This is the fun part, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to say first that, we did our best to simplify the process for the application. We have all, experienced what it means to have these long-winded questions, in these long surveys about our practice, etc. We want you to be thoughtful, but we also want you to be concise. So we shortened the number of questions and gave you enough room to do so. The application is on the Zealous platform. It's a new platform. So, but it operates in the same way as other platforms such as Submittable, etc. You will apply directly online as opposed to uploading, let's say, a complete proposal. You do not have to do that. The questions are laid out for you. They're either multiple choice or there's an area for you to fill in your text or your statements or your bio, et cetera, with a limited word count. So we're going to go through each of those steps now. Of course, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. If you do not have the link to the Zealous platform, the direct link to the to the application, it is on screen right now. Made easy for you. It's bit.ly/Bandung 2022 residency. You can also find that link on our respective sites, on A4 site and also on Mokata's site. Deadline. I always want to stress this part because I know I'm the worst at this as well. Deadline is 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, April 17th. Please, please, please. We know how technology works. We understand how, there are times when, we're all uploading simultaneously where the site might crash. We don't want that to happen. So if you can, try to submit before 11:30, so give yourself some time. We prefer if you do that as opposed to waiting till 11:59, because if your application comes in after, we will not accept it, unfortunately. Next slide, please. So that's again, 11:59, April 17th, Eastern Standard Time. The application has multiple components. As I mentioned, there's an optional video section. There are identity questions, there are narrative questions, project description, and contact details. Again, we'll go through each of those sections over the next few slides. The first thing that you'll see, once you get to the Zealous platform, you will see the actual residency description as well as materials to download for further accessibility. If you need an e-reader, etc., there are PDF documents and Word documents, I believe, at the bottom of the residency page, but at the top right corner, right below the title of the residency, you'll see a link to apply. You'll click that link, and once you click that link, it'll take you to this page. So this first page is completely optional. It's if you want to submit a 1 to 2 minute video about your practice, about your project, something that you're excited about within the two communities, etc., an experience, or something that has influenced your project in some way, shape, or form. This is completely optional. You do not have to do this. If you are interested in doing this, you can click upload. I don't know if you can see my, I don't think you can see my cursor on the screen because I'm not the one who's sharing. But exactly, you can click, thank you, Priscilla. You can click upload, or if you have something that's already uploaded on your own website, or on YouTube, etc., or Vimeo, and you want to embed that media, you can do so right next to upload. Instead, you'll just click that and add the embedded code right directly there. And you'll hit save right below that. And where it says save as draft, you can hit save as draft, or you can hit next. If you do not want to upload a video, you can bypass this entire section and hit next at the bottom right corner. Next page. The next section you'll see once you hit next is the section with the identity questions. This is to give us a little bit more insight as to who you are in terms of who is actually applying for this residency. Are you a collective? Are you an individual? Who are you as an artist, an educator, organizer, activist? These are demographic questions for the most part, because we do want to make sure that we're covering all our bases and that that this inaugural core is reflective of our entire community in some way, shape, or form, our collective communities, I should say. So we want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. So that's the purpose of this section, the identity questions. But again, there are word counts for each of these lines, right? So for name, I think if you can you zoom in, Priscilla, by any chance? I don't know if you can.
I can't.
You can't, okay, no worries. But if you look at each of the text fields right below the question, so like for instance, if the ask is name, like what is your name? Right below that, you'll see the word count. So each one is different. There are some that are 50 words, some are 150 words, et cetera, et cetera. Again, try to keep it as concise as possible because we don't want you to spend too much time, as we've all done, as I mentioned before, and filling out this application. Actually, can you go back a second? Sorry about that. I want to stay on individual or collective for a second. Within the individual or collective section of the identity questions, the reason why we're asking this question, who is your representative and what is your structure for sharing power and knowledge within the collective? We find this really important because oftentimes when we decide to work in collectives, sometimes it is an emergent strategy. We were having this discussion, we decided at the last moment, let's work on this project together, but we haven't necessarily thought through our process for collecting information, for working together, for building. We want to ensure that each collective that does submit an application is thinking in that way, thinking ahead and futuring at what are the possibilities? What are our mechanisms for dealing with grievances if they arise? Who is going to be the point person to collect information or share information with either Lisa, Priscilla, or myself, or with the different presenters or with YK, et cetera, et cetera. And then also, how is that information being disseminated to the rest of the group? So we want you to think this out. So be as detailed as possible in this section when you are applying, if you are applying as a collective. Next page, please. The narrative questions. Again, this is a little bit of a deepening into what is your intention, essentially. So how did you hear about this opportunity? It could have been word of mouth. You could have seen it on our respective sites, et cetera, on social media. Just let us know. What is your experience within the two communities identified? So when we talk about experience could be your artistic practice specifically working embedded in these communities, right? Or it could be you're just a member of this community, but you feel compelled to do something. That's fine. We're looking at all experiences, lived, shared, etc. I think that was something that Lisa said earlier on. You do not have to have the experience of having built a complete project within the community. You don't have to have 30 years of experience as an artist. That is not necessarily a criteria, but the criteria is to have an idea of what you're looking to do within these two communities. And I think it's just helpful to know if you've done something before. And what is your intention? Why is this residency so important to you right now in this moment? Why is this idea that you're looking to present really important in this moment? So we want you to articulate that. And we've given you about 300 words max there. So it's not, you don't have to write an essay. 300 words is about a paragraph or two here about your intention, as well as what is your experience in the community. And I see some questions coming up. I'm going to answer these questions in just a second. So as soon as I finish going through the application process, I'll come back. The next component is the project description. So exactly, the project description. So there are 6 questions that we're asking within this project description, but you have 500 words max for the total, for your complete answer. So you're answering these 6 questions within 500 words. Does that make sense? Just thumbs up, yes in the chat would be helpful. Awesome, thank you. So the project description, what is your project and how will its center involve the communities identified? I think that's straightforward, What do you, again, what is your intention? Intention was the last question from the narrative section. I wanna explain the difference between your intention and what is the project. Your intention is what is your ultimate goal, right? What is the purpose of your project? Whereas the project description, when we're saying how will it center community and what is it, we're asking for more detail as what is the mechanism? What is the actual structure or product or workshop or whatever it is that you're building? What is the, how do you describe it as in a physical form or a tangible form? What is it versus what was the purpose behind it? Is this an existing project? It doesn't have to be, but if it is, we'd like to know how you're expanding upon that existing project. If it is not an existing project, you could just easily tell us that this is new, that this is inspired by something of the moment. How will you build a project? You know, I have students who are working on their thesis projects right now, and I always say, okay, what is your work plan? Essentially, that is what we're asking for. How do you intend to build this? What do you need? What resources would you need? Who are you going to be working with? Or who would you like access to? If this is something where you're working solo, we'd like to know that too, and let us know your process. Why is now the time for this project? What is sparking the interest now? Why are you motivated to do this now? How will it be impactful now to the communities, to you, and to other artists who may be, or other residents who may be a part of this program? How will your project benefit the communities identified? Again, going back to community impact, for us, that is the ultimate goal of creating solidarity, but maybe there are other things within that that you're seeing as a benefit to the collective communities. We want you to share that and be as clear as possible. If you do not have, let's say, a quote unquote tangible benefit, like cause and effect, let's say, right? So I'm building this project and 30 people will be impacted. We don't necessarily need the exact number of people who will be impacted, because I want to be clear on that. When we say community impact, we're talking about what is your proposed impact? If we're saying that we want to create solidarity, are you entering the community and bringing people together for an event? And they will be transformed in that moment? If so, tell us. That is your intention. And that's how you feel that folks will benefit. Timeline. How will you use the time? So we talked about the length of time of the residency. It's about 3 months, including speakers and also kind of leadership workshops with YK Hung. How will you use this time during this residency to build this project? Is this residency going to enable you to be to actually commit time to this project? Is this residency giving you time to do research? Is this residency allowing you to be in community with others in order to build a new project or build an existing project? How will you use the time? We want to make sure that everyone is being as productive as possible, even though you're not required to deliver an end project. We do want to make sure that you are being productive with this time. Next slide, please. And I'm looking at the time. Okay, so the next section, additional information. Again, this section is optional. If you find that the word count for some of the other sections was a bit short and you want to add more color or more information that we didn't necessarily ask, or that you feel like you left out, use this section for that. And you have about 300 words max to do so. And right below that section, the additional info section is the contact details. Your address, your phone number. Please, please, please. If you have a Google Voice number, you can list that, because I know some applications don't allow you to do that. They want a mobile phone number. Ideally, please give us zip code, area code, and phone number here. And it could be a Google Voice number, it could be your cell number, it could be, no one has a landline anymore, I think. But if you do have a landline, it could be a landline. But it has to be an operating number, because we might want to get in touch with you. So at this point, you can either, when you get to this point of the application, you can either save as draft. Let's say you want to come back and review after you've kind of answered some of the questions, and you'll get back to the longer form questions later. send in the application. Next page, please. Next slide. Oh, thank you. So, as I mentioned at the top of this section, the applications are due by 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on April 17th. Again, please try to get those in before 11:30 p.m. so that you are not in a bottleneck situation between 11:30 and 11:59. We do not want the site to crash. We want to make sure that everyone's application has an opportunity to come through. Applications that come after 11:59 will not be accepted. So keep that in mind. After you submit, we will go through an internal review between April 18th and April 20th, by which from there, we'll send out the applications that we have reviewed to panelists who, as Lisa Gold mentioned earlier, we are still reviewing or we're still in dialogue with various community leaders with regards to the panelists. They will go through their panel review, and then we will finally on May 10th notify the selected participants. Residency begins a week later and ends on August 16th. Next slide. Selection criteria. So as I mentioned, there will be a panel of 5 reviewers who cut across the artistic community, academic community as well. We're excited about the folks we've reached out to. We will share that later. We won't share that. We're not sharing that now as we're still in dialogue. But we will be empowering them to look at each application through the lens of a holistic kind of review. You know, ideally, these are the selection criteria essentially. Is there potential for growth through this project? Is there, and for the artist or the organizer or the activist who's applying, is there a willingness to share? Is there a willingness to collaborate with others within the cohort, and those within the community? Is there an opportunity and willingness to learn as well? Because again, we're making sure that throughout this residency, that there are thought leaders who are sharing their insights from their artistic practices and projects that they've created, from their movements that they've led, et cetera, and as well as themes and topics they've explored. So we're doing our best to ensure that you have the tools to build the things that you want to build, but also to gain more insight about what's happening on the ground with these communities. So we want to make sure that there is a willingness to learn. Execution of project. You know, is there potential for this project to be executed either within the residency period or at a later date? And also, if you are, sharing previous projects, or this is a project that's already existing, what have you done already? That will be insightful for us, but it's not necessarily a game changer versus someone who doesn't have a project that is pre-existing. Et cetera. Clarity of goals and personal benchmarks. Do you have milestones that you set for yourself within this kind of learning experience? Have you set some goals for yourself aside from just your general intention with this project? You know, what are your personal benchmarks, and how do they ladder up to our overall goals within this residency? And as clear as you can articulate that, the better. Again, we're asking you to share these details, but we want you to be concise, but clarity is always key. Final selections will be selected to balance backgrounds, projects, and learnings to foster a diverse cohort. This is what I was talking about when I was explaining the reasons behind the identity questions and the narrative questions. We definitely want to ensure that we have as well as much of a well-balanced cohort as possible. So wherever you can lend information as to who you are and what your vision is, the easier it is for us to determine that balance and to help shape that balance. Next slide, please. So questions. I know there were a couple of questions in the chat before I jump to the next. Hold on, let me go really fastly. One of the first questions was, is a portfolio required? No, a portfolio is not required. However, you can absolutely use the submission, the first slide that we went through, where's the video submission. If you want to embed your portfolio there, you're welcome to, but it is not required. If I wanted to rewatch, Lisa answered that question. So just in case, if I wanted to rewatch this later, where can I access this recording? Yes, this recording will be posted on both of our websites, in addition to A4's YouTube channel. So we'll keep you posted on that. Follow us on our social media, especially Instagram, right? To see when we posted that live. And I think, oh, would you ever consider expanding this opportunity to non-New York City residents, or do you know of any? I'm from Ohio, hoping to move to New York, and surprised, there's nothing like this here. You know, this is, I'll say this, and Lisa, please chime in. I'll say this, I think that we're really excited about this opportunity to present this residency. Obviously, this is the first time that we're doing it, so this is the inaugural cohort, so to speak. I think that if it's successful, which I'm pretty sure it will be, we hope to do it again. I don't know if it'll be extended outside of New York City. I think that's a dream, you know, and if we could find other collaborators, I think that would be great as well. What do you think, Lisa?
I totally agree. And I think it's something that we could share with other organizations that we're in dialogue with across the country. I'm sure Amy is speaking to organizations all over the place. I recently was part of a steering committee at the Midwest Arts Foundation, and there are just a number of organizations doing social justice work that I think would be very interested in a program like this. So fingers crossed that we can make it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're just gonna start. We're starting here before we're biting off more than we can chew. So,
right. The next question, the very important question about collective structure, sharing power. What sort of thinking are you seeking from individual artists in this question? That question is actually specifically for collectives, so you can actually bypass that question. And thank you for mentioning it. If you see a question that's related to specifically collectives and you are not applying as a collective, you can simply type N/A, and I'll put it in the chat, as in not applicable, and keep it moving. So you don't have to worry about that question. Let's see, what's the next one? When would we know the specific meeting times, figuring out how to work with family travels?
We're working on that. We're thinking it's going to be an evening session. I think probably 6 to 8, but we're just confirming. But it's 90%. It will take place in the evenings.
Right. Did we say Tuesdays?
Yes. Oh, I think we have the dates, the meeting dates already in the timeline.
Right. Actually, so when you go to Zealous, that first page that describes the residency, the application process, etc. There is a timeline. If you scroll down, there is a timeline which includes the dates for the different workshops. So you can access that easily without having to apply first to get those dates. That's one. Then two, as Lisa just said, we're most likely looking at evening times for those meetings. I believe we said that for the leadership workshops with YK, those are mandatory. There are 3 of those. And we are asking that residents also attend the speaker conversations. However, let's say you're a part of a collective and you can't attend, I think a member of your collective should be in attendance. And, again, this goes back to that question about collecting information and sharing information, disseminating information within your group. We ask that you do that on behalf of all those who can't be in attendance. But if you're an individual who may not be able to attend, let's say, one of the speaker meetings, I think we may be able to share video. Yeah? of those meetings. We do want to, we want to encourage you to be there because it's a way to build community with each other, and to ask questions. So we don't want to, I'll say this, I'll speak for myself here. I wouldn't want to encourage you not to be there. So if you can be there, be there. But if obviously things come up, and if you cannot be there, I think we can make those videos accessible. What would you say, Lisa?
I think so. We'll have to, I think for the learning exchanges, we'll confirm with YK just to ensure that people feel comfortable being recorded, because again, the whole purpose of this is to create a safe space for each other. So I think that probably could be accommodated. We just want to confirm before we commit.
Oh, wait, no, just to be clear, I was saying the leadership exchanges are required. Those are not optional, but for the speaker conversations, we could potentially record those and share.
Yes. The speakers will definitely be recorded for sure. Okay. Yes, sorry.
No worries. Adding questions to the queue. Since I work full-time, I'm curious to ask how much time commitment you anticipate the residency will be asking for. I recognize that each project will have its own needs, but more like what is the residency asking for within the learning exchanges? Good question.
Well, I mean, at a minimum, we're looking at, I guess, 16 hours because there are 8 meetings and each one would be about 2 hours plus the speaker events, which would be 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm guessing a minimum of 19 hours we're asking you to commit to this group work, the cohort work. And of course, the amount of time that you need to commit over the 3 months to your idea, that's up to you. Depends on your project, of course.
Right. What is the window for accessing the $1,000 project funding? That's a good question as well.
Yeah, I think we're still working out some of the details on that, but I think after we review the applications and the project timelines, I believe the funds would be allocated within this time period. So it's not like, in November, you can come back to us and ask for it. It would be, before August 16th that we would make those funds available. But because this is a new initiative, we're still trying to work out some of those details. And so we don't have examples of past projects from this residency because it is a brand new effort.
Exactly. But be creative, have fun with this. This is an opportunity to do the work that we've been talking about in our communities, in our friendship circles, etc. Here's the opportunity to do something. So don't be afraid to submit something completely new, we're looking for innovation, right? That's what this is about. Next question. If we are not New York City residents, but can commit to attending all of the workshops and dates needed to be in New York City, could we be eligible to apply this year?
I'm gonna have to say no, because the purpose of this, while it is to create solidarity, program, and we do want to see how these projects can impact our communities. So we kind of need to have them happen here.
I would agree with that. Next question. I would be overseas for the final week. Would you accept a pre-recorded video report in case the Wi-Fi doesn't work where I am an individual? I don't see why not. It's a great question. I don't see why not.
I know. It would be sad to miss out on the group sharing, but
right.
I think we could accommodate.
Right. Is attending in-person meeting mandatory since the term is the touring time for musicians? My friends and I may get some last-minute gigs, although this residency has the higher priority. Our may need to take I think that's a typo after that. So the question is, since the term is the touring time for musicians, my friends and I may get some last-minute gigs. is attending in-person meetings mandatory? The leadership meetings, yeah. The learning exchanges, those are absolutely necessary. I think I was just speaking to this before. Those are absolutely necessary and mandatory. The speaker workshops, we want to encourage you to attend them all. So if you think that you will miss more than one or two, that's a little difficult. We would encourage you to participate in all of them. I think I answered that question. I think I did. The next one.
There's the question about.
Oh, the Global South, yes. I noticed that the application equates the concept of the third world with the Global South. Both of these concepts have been disputed. Will the program sessions address this as a discussion topic? What are some of the discussion topics being planned? Very good question. So third world, Global South, the reason why that language was used was based on, at the time of the original conference in 1955, that was the language that was being used for the most part. But yes, topics such as that will come up, I'm sure. I know that YK, so a little bit of background about YK. YK is an anti-oppression organizer, thought leader, and consultant. So they will be exploring many topics on their own. But in addition to that, the residents will be participating actively, engaging in discussion that they want to bring up as well. So topics that they may feel is important to their particular project or the collective communities in general. So this could be posed, yes. But the exact list of discussion topics, we don't have that at this moment. Because obviously that's emerging, that will be emerging through the dialogue. Oh, yes. I think I noticed that the application said something like you can only submit once. Just to confirm, is there not an option to save and continue later? Must do it all in one go. No, you can save. At the bottom of every page of the application, on the left side, there is a save draft button. You can click save draft and come back to it later. And then submit whenever you're ready to. So you don't have to do it all in one sitting. However, as I'm sure you're all aware of with every application, right? You know, every residency or grant application, it's always best to, you know, if you can, use a Word document first to answer all the questions and then copy and paste when you're ready into the field online, etc. 2 questions. Would you be able to please go over the difference between a collective and an organization? And then the second question, the founder of the collective is not a student, but I as the co-founder am. Would we still be able to apply? So let's start with the first question. Can we go over the difference between a collective and an organization? I think the difference is a collective is less formal than an organization. So an organization is incorporated, right?
Or it could be applying under, or oftentimes applies as, you know, under fiscal sponsorship.
Right, exactly. So that is an organization, whereas a collective is a group of individuals working together towards the building of a project, which is not as, it's more informal, say that. The second question, the founder of the collective is not a student, but I as the co-founder am. Would we still be able to apply?
I'm thinking, I was thinking no, because again, the purpose of this is to have, you know, people dedicated to the project to have opportunities and access that they would not have as students. I think there are a lot of resources that are given to students, or access that are not given to people once they are in, you know, out in the world as an emerging artist, or even as a mid-career artist. So we're thinking this is really for people who are dedicated to their practice, kind of mostly full-time, or as close to that as possible. Amy?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Can you share more about how the learning exchanges will be facilitated? I think we just talked about that. They will be conversational. Yes, there will be themes that are kind of grounding themes for those conversations. But both YK and those who are in attendance, all the residents, will be exploring themes that come up naturally through those conversations. But the intention is to fortify the historical, the legacy of solidarity between these two communities, and exploring what are the current issues within these collective communities and how to bridge the solidarity. Would you agree? Yes. Okay. Sorry, I'm still going. Can you share what? No. Also, two artists in our collective. We spoke about the artists being students. Can we use part of the project money to pay the performers, teachers, including ourselves? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, we will put the link of the recordings on the websites. I think I have worked with YK Hung with another organization, and it's very enlightening, although it can be intense as well. Highly recommended, the self-work and reflection involved. Absolutely. I would agree with you. 100%, it's intense. Again, I think I said this in my intro, that this at the end, well, I shouldn't say at the end of this, but throughout this process, one of our intentions is that there is transformation that is occurring. With the residents who are participating within our communities, with each other as a collective, working together through this residency, etc. So YK is amazing. I'm forever changed by YK, and I hope you will be too. So there's that. Did we go through everything? I think that those are all the questions, actually.
I think so. If you have additional questions, you can, Miggy has one more question, but I was going to say, you can email bandung2022@mocata.org. And we will also try to put all of these questions on the FAQ page to update that as questions and responses come in.
Oh, that's a good point. What we'll do is we can update the application to add a link to YK's page so you can learn more about YK.
And Miggy wanted to know if we could talk a bit more.
What is your experience? Oh, what is your experience within the two communities? For instance, let's say if you're an artist, an educator, or organizer, etc., maybe you have been involved as a teaching artist within one of these two communities. Whether you may have been involved in a project that was focusing on one of these two communities, or maybe you have been exploring these two communities or one of the two communities for some time. So in terms of research, you've done tremendous research there and have written about it, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many ways to describe experience within these two communities. You could also be someone who is just a member of the community and speak to that. So I think we want to know more about the lived experience within these two communities. What have you done within this community, or what have you experienced, i.e. lived within this community? I hope that was helpful. Maybe.
I think so.
Yeah. And yes, Fiona, that is the right email. It's on screen right now.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amy. Thank you to our ASL interpreters. And thank you to all of you for expressing interest and for the work that you do. And we are so excited to receive your applications and see what you come up with. Amy, you want to say anything in closing?
I mean, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I'm excited. I cannot wait to see the applications. If the chat is any indication of what's going to come through, this is going to be a great inaugural cohort.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And again, feel free to reach out with any questions. We look forward to staying in touch. Have a great day, everyone.